from the Figure 4 Online Studios in beautiful Bothell, Washington, exclusively at WrestlingObserver.com. You're listening to the Bryan and Vinny Show with your hosts, Brian Alvarez and Big Vinny V.
Bryan and Vinny Show here. We got a lot to get into, and we got to get into it. First day of AEW and NXT. Granny is being moved to Sundays, if you're unaware, so we got a lot to get into. Let's go, Vinny.
AEW Dynamite, October 2nd, 2019.
Always start with the WWE show.
WWE NXT, still October 2nd, 2019. So we get a cool opening video with narrated by Corey Taylor of Slipknot. It's a very special show. They got a special celebrity guest. Tommaso Ciampa all over this video, which I thought kind of spoiled the surprise at the end. It's pretty cool, but I watched Dynamite on Wednesday night and then cranked up NXT Thursday morning. And boy, when you go from Dynamite in the big, giant, sold-out arena to God bless these fans of Full Sail, but there's not very many of them.
Dude, I watched them right after each other. I watched AEW, and then 1 minute later, I turned on NXT, and they're in this tiny building. Like, the fans were good for the majority of the show. Dave last night said 2 great crowds. I wouldn't go that far. They were great for the opening match on the NXT show, because it was the best match of the night by far, but they were not great all night long. They were good. Sometimes they were great. Sometimes they were quiet. But there is no way they can stay in this building. If AEW would have done 1 million viewers and NXT would have done 1 million viewers, then fine. I'm sure they're going to stay in the building until the end of the year. This was 1.4 million versus like 800,000.
Almost 2 to 1.
They got slaughtered in the demos. The male 12 to 34 demo, AEW tripled them. They doubled them in persons 18 to 49. Like, you know that Vince is not going to look at these numbers and go, well, it's because people were more interested in AEW. Oh, it's because AEW had a better show. No, he's going to look at things like, oh, it was our building. He's going to look at things like, oh, it's because the replay is on the WWE Network the next night. I don't know this for sure, but it was very strongly hinted to me today that the days of being able to watch NXT on the network on Thursday, over. I don't know when they're going to put it up. I wouldn't be surprised if they started putting it up on Tuesdays. But they're going to look for every excuse in the book, and one of them is this building. You cannot go AEW running these big buildings and NXT here in Full Sail. It's just not going to work.
So we open with the main event of Matt Riddle versus Adam Cole, just coming out with both guns blazing here in the Wednesday Night Wars. So they start having this great match, and it's great from the get-go. And they're working a super fast pace, and like 5 minutes in, Riddle starts making his comeback. And I'm thinking to myself, as much as I love this, I'm sad that it's only going to get like 7 or 8 minutes. 20 minutes later, good God, what a match. Good God almighty, what a great match this was. This was a sprint, a 20-minute sprint. There was no time to catch your breath. There was no time to not pay attention to the screen because you would miss something incredible happening. To make matches like this work, because there was no heat, there really was no story to this. The story was 2 guys beating the shit out of each other. And to pull off a match like this, you need to have 2 freak athletes, check, who can make everything they do look believable and realistic, check, and are also capable of big, giant high spots to really pop the crowd, check. This is just A+ pro wrestling. So after several tries at the final shot in the Panama Sunrise, I've forgotten the finish. I just remember how much I love this match. Finally, Adam Cole's got his cast. And Riddle had worked it a few times, but they had basically ignored the hand in the cast all night until at the very end, after Riddle Cole escaped the bromission. He finally hits one cast shot, finally hits the final shot, and gets the pin. When this is done, my first instinct was stop the show, rewind it, and watch that entire match again. This was phenomenal.
So they had a couple of spots in here. There was a Matt Riddle bro to sleep, followed by a power bomb, followed by a knee, followed by a twisting moonsault, and Cole kicked out. As soon as that happened, I knew Matt Riddle's not winning because there's nothing this guy can do that's going to top that series.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the finish. This was one of the best WWE matches. I don't know if I'd say in years, but
it was the best one since TakeOver.
This was one of the best WWE matches. Yeah, this was. I mean, yeah, there have been some TakeOver main events. All of the Johnny Gargano TakeOver main events were probably a little bit better than this, but this was so great. And again, I watched this match. I watched the reaction of the fans to this match. I watched Finn Balor coming out afterwards and everybody standing up during his entrance and doing the deal. All I could think was, if this would have been in a 12,000-seat building, Washington, D.C., this for sure would have probably won Match of the Year for WWE. This would have been so awesome. And it's here in full sale. Like, it doesn't matter how great the crowd was. And the crowd was awesome. This was the best Full Sail has been maybe all year long. I can't think of a Full Sail reaction that was better than this one. But still, they're in a little tiny building in the middle of a Wednesday Night War. This is not going to fly.
They did everything they could, they being both NXT and the fans themselves, to make this loud and energetic and fun, but there's only so much you can do with a few hundred people when the other guy's got 10,000 people in a jam-packed arena.
Not to mention, everybody says, well, Bryan, you say that they got to go on the road and sell tickets, but have you seen how many tickets NXT sells when they go on the road? Yeah, not very many. Guess what? It's for the small little shows that they do that are just shows. Do you ever look at like the Raw and SmackDown house show numbers compared to Raw and SmackDown TV? They're different. If NXT was running on the road, I'm not saying that they're going to sell 8,000 tickets every week. They're not going to. But when people say NXT can't sell tickets on the road, yeah, they can. TakeOver. TakeOver does, they can do 12,000 people at TakeOver. Yeah, they do 700 people in the middle of Florida for a house show. Well, I wonder what the difference is. If they're running NXT television, they can easily fill 3,000 seat buildings, which is a lot more than the 400 people in Full Sail. They got to move on to the road.
So I shared my love for this match on Twitter afterwards.
Never do that.
I didn't. It was not too bad.
Don't do anything on Twitter.
Everyone was respectful, but I will say I got comments such as, "I just don't get the Riddle love." And I'm not going. Last time I said I talked bad about fans, people took it very seriously and they got very hurt. So I'm just going to say you're welcome to like whatever you like. But boy, if you don't get the Riddle love, then you and I watch wrestling for different reasons.
I'll bury the fans. You don't get Matt Riddle.
That's what they said.
What are you watching pro wrestling for then?
I have no idea.
Go watch something else.
I don't know.
This match was fantastic. This was the best of Matt Riddle. This was the best of Adam Cole. It was the best of them together. It was phenomenal. It was the best match of the night by like 10.
So Adam Cole is celebrating in the ring, as well he should, when Finn Balor did make his return to NXT. And he came out and said, I'm in NXT now. And that was it. And I will say this, it's better to be a top guy here than a nothing happening guy on Raw. Have a Candice Shayna video package. It was good. The best one was the line about Shayna's line about how people who face me, they don't just lose matches, they lose days off their career. Velveteen Dream comes out for a promo. He got a new couch.
He's got a new couch.
Bunch of new women.
Got a bunch of new women. And then talks about how I've never complained about having to take on more than one man at the same time. Everybody cheers.
Yes.
Now that was like the one thing in the promo that was notable. He had a funny line. Everybody cheered. Other than that, and I have nothing against the Velveteen Dream. I'm pretty sure he's going to be a big-time superstar. He is not a very good promo. This was just... He has so much charisma that people don't notice that he's not a very good promo.
His charisma is all body language.
There was nothing to this promo. He wants Roddy and the title.
A rematch with Roddy. He's not going to complain about the way the Undisputed Era interfered, but he basically dared Roddy to prove he could beat him by himself. Challenged him to a rematch. Lio Rush Drew Gulak hype video for their match next week for what is now the NXT Cruiserweight Championship.
My favorite talking point. It's now the NXT Cruiserweight title. The 205 Live guys are all working NXT, but 205 Live is on Friday. So all of the NXT people that have to work on 205 Live now have to work Wednesday and Friday instead of just having 205 Live on Wednesday, since the guys are all there for NXT anyway. It makes no sense.
Io Shirai versus Mia Yim. So one thing I noticed watching both these shows is how much they actually had in common. AEW had a ton of panning crane shots. They had this big crane over the arena, panning from left to right or up and down during the match. They fell in love with it, and it got to be overkill. And NXT was doing some of the same stuff here. And when you're watching a sporting event, the camera should be stationary. It makes things much easier to watch. If they're just doing a chin lock and you want to cut to a wide shot of the arena to break up things visually, great. But when stuff is actually happening in the ring, just let me watch it, please. So, as great as that first match was, well, it was the opener. So first of all, everything had to follow it and nothing could. But more to the point, a lot of the matches on the show were stylistically similar, but nowhere near as good. These women had a fight. It went back and forth. There was no sustained heat. There was just a bunch of fighting and moves, and it was not half as good as the match that opened the show, and they could not follow it. So it was clearly not as good. It went like 50 minutes. It was fine. It was like a decent TV main event, but it was nothing special after what we had just watched. And then Io just hit a bunch of kicks, hit the moonsault, and won.
His fans were tired after that opener. This match obviously could not follow that opener. It was fine. Crowd was quiet. They got into the stuff at the end. The match was pretty good. That's my review.
The other thing I wanted to talk about production-wise, both companies try to get away with, when they had to do commercials, we'll put the commercials in a bigger window.
This is stupid.
But let you watch the small one. Yeah, it does not work.
Listen, the idea is we'll show you you don't have to turn the channel. You can still watch the show during the commercials. Okay, that's fine in theory, but the inset, the small window, is the wrestling.
Yeah.
You can barely see what's going on.
Yeah.
And you can't even hear it.
There's no audio.
So how is that going to prevent me from watching the other show? I can barely see it, and I can't hear it. You may as well be at a commercial break.
I ended up skipping them anyway.
And it's not only that, but it was irritating to me because particularly on the AEW show, they did the commercial with the inset as Chris Jericho is beating up Cody, and it looks like a vicious beating. The crowd, you can see, is totally into it, but I can't watch or hear it.
Yeah.
That made me mad because I knew something cool was happening that I couldn't see. When they just do a commercial, it's like a little kid. You close your eyes, you just figure everything's vanished. When I can't see it, nothing's happening.
Sure.
It's a tree falling in the forest. Don't show me that inset.
Scott Hall and Kevin Nash are shown in the crowd. The Street Profits arrive at the building, and I believe this is the first time they acknowledge that Montez Ford and Bianca Belair are married.
I believe so.
Yeah.
That usually means something in NXT.
It might. The Tegan Knox video. She hurt her leg. She's coming back. For the first time since they went to 2 hours and went live, Johnny Gargano appears on NXT.
Yeah.
Kind of
against Shane Thorne.
I don't want to say he was a forgotten man, but you'd think they would put him on here before now.
I buried the idea of this match. Mm-hmm. I couldn't believe that Johnny Gargano was facing Shane Thorne. I couldn't believe that they were building it up thinking that I would care. And all of a sudden they go out there and they have a great match. Johnny Gargano is so great.
He is.
This was the best Shane Thorne match in the history of NXT.
Sure, that's true.
By multiples. I've never seen anything even close to this out of Shane Thorne. Johnny Gargano, he's hurt. That's why he's wrestled 5 or 6 times this year. Mm-hmm. He comes in here. He looks great. He moves great. Everything he does looks awesome. He's one of the best wrestlers in the whole entire world. He was great.
It was the third match in a row that was stylistically the same, just a back and forth sprint the whole way through. Shane hit the Akira Tawa powerbomb, as they noted, for he got the heat for maybe a minute, and then kept going back and forth. And Gargano hit the Poison Rana, which is the new name for the reverse Rana in NXT. No matter who hits it, it's a Poison Rana. and the super kick, and he won. Candice LeRae and Shayna Baszler. Okay, here's something else I hated about production. Don't do 5 minutes of intros and entrances and introductions and light show and all that, and then as soon as they start to wrestle, then go to commercial. That pisses me off. That said, I love this match. Shayna rules. It was great champs of old champ, new champ. That's a new one.
Dude, Shayna rules, but Io Shirai and Candice at TakeOver was absolutely phenomenal. And this was the best Shayna match in I don't even know how long.
Quite a while.
There is one thing in common between those two matches, and it's Candice LeRae. She is awesome.
Well, you've got me there.
Yes.
You got me there. So, Shayna kept going for the Karafuda clutch, and Candice kept finding new ways to reverse it. She'd reverse into a cradle, she'd reverse it into one of her own. But finally, after the cradle, Candice tried the K-Brada, and she missed, and Shayna basically caught her in the Karafuda clutch, and Candice tried to power out, but she's too small. And she tried to reach for those ropes, and she reached, and she reached, and she reached, and she couldn't get him, and she tapped out. This match also ruled.
So this match was great, and Candice is great, and she didn't win the title. So my idea had been for Rhea Ripley to beat Shayna and win the title tonight on the same show that AEW crowned their women's champion. Because I thought, you know what? I think that Shayna and Rhea Ripley could have a better match, and Rhea Ripley would be seen as the superior champion if you ran them head-to-head. What I was not expecting was for the AEW match to end up being a very good match and for the crowd to turn it into a great match. If they would have done Shayna versus Rhea Ripley with Rhea winning on this show, it actually would have almost certainly been second place to AEW. So I'm glad they didn't do it.
Okay.
With that said, now they can do it.
Well, now even better.
Somebody needs to beat Shayna.
They could have, first they could do Rhea and Candice. Rhea can beat her and Candice can make her look great, and then you do Rhea and Shayna.
You could do that. Yeah. But the thing is, Candice could have beaten Shayna here, but I don't think that Candice should have won the title yet. Candice needs to be, coincidentally, a Johnny Gargano.
Yeah.
She needs to be the little baby face who overcomes a lot of odds and finally beats a bigger person for the title. So, Shayna needs to lose to somebody who seems superior to Shayna. And I think you can do that with Rhea Ripley. So I'm still advocating for her to beat Shayna here in the next few weeks.
Stephanie McMahon, Mark Henry, and Alundra Blaze are shown sitting together in the crowd, and it just occurred to me what a bizarre trio that is.
Yeah.
Had an Imperium Kushida hype video. Pete Dunne versus Danny Burch.
Well, next week it's Walter versus Kushida.
Yes. Pete Dunne versus Danny Burch. We're back to another back and forth sprint throughout this match. It was shorter than the others.
Actually, it wasn't that much shorter than the others. The problem was they promised limited commercial interruptions. And I guess that meant picture in picture. But because they did no commercials for the first 30 minutes, they had to do all of those commercials that they didn't take later.
And since after the first and second of those I was skipping, I probably skipped half this match.
So this looked like a great match. Like everything we saw was great, but we saw like 2 minutes of it because I'm pretty sure there were 2 commercial breaks in the middle of this match.
I believe so.
I know there was one. And again, I couldn't see a thing that was going on in that stupid picture-in-picture, so it was useless to me. But it did remind me that I'm missing a lot of this action because of these stupid commercials. So, everything they did looked great, the 9 things that we saw, and then Dunn hit the bitter end and pinned him.
Snapped his fingers, hit the bitter end, and won. And as he is celebrating, the lights go out when he is attacked by Damian Priest. An odd pairing this is. And Priest lays him out and goes up on top of the stage and does his little pose to his music and all that. Kathy Kelly starts to interview Adam Cole, who is awesome. We've never talked about this before. She accuses him, or doesn't even accuse, she asks about how he used the cast to win. He is very defiant. First thing he says is, this cast is required by WWE Medical. And more to the point, I did not win with the cast. I won with the last shot. Before he can say anything else, the Undisputed Era interrupt. They're all very upset about the way Finn Balor stole the spotlight. but he calms them down. Screw Balor, he says. We are focused on the prophecy remaining fulfilled. We must make sure Fish and O'Reilly retain these tag team titles. And then after a hype video for this match, we get the Street Profits versus Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish.
So listen, obviously, Wale is a buddy of mine. It's been on Observer Live. I've been to Wale Mania. So you can say what you want about this, but these are my true feelings. This guy is so awesome. When I went to Wale Mania, Wale's in the back and just kind of chit-chat with him. And he's a quiet sort of dude and friendly, quiet. He was forcing Dave and I to take shots, mostly because I think he wanted to get Dave drunk. But point of this is, we're back there, and it was just like the beginning of this segment where Wale is there with the Street Profits, and he does this introduction for the Street Profits backstage, and he kind of puts his head down, and he just quietly says, I don't even remember what he said. That's like how nothing it was. He's like, well, here we go, Street Profits. It's Dawkins and this other dude here. And I'm like,
you sound more like Buddy than Wale.
Is he asleep? Like, what's going on here with Wale? So he's just so quiet. And there's just nothing to it. And I'm like, Wale, what are you doing, dude? And then they opened the door, and someone wound it. He got turned on.
Yes.
Someone flipped a switch. When I was at Wale Mania, he did this was like the first year, not the most recent year, I guess the second year, whatever. But the point of this is, he did a concert. And when that dude went out there to do the concert, like a shocker of all shockers right here, this dude is an incredibly charismatic, out of this world live performer. I was blown away by Wale. This guy comes out here with the Street Profits. I'm practically getting goosebumps thinking about this. These three guys were like unbelievable. Like everything that people say about, Street Profits and how big, not so much Dawkins, but Ford, like how big this guy could be. I'm watching these guys out there and I thought, you know what? If the Street Profits and Wale were like an act and they came out on Raw and you just shot them right to the top and you gave them the tag titles in a division, if they actually had the titles mean something, and they got to go out there every Monday night and do their entrance, they would be the most overact in all of WWE by like a significant margin. Who else is even over there right now? The Fiend? Seth Rollins? Roman Reigns? I guess Brock, because he's just like, Brock. Mm-hmm. But these guys, they felt like something, like, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I was talking to a buddy of mine in WWE today, and he was just talking about the main roster. And he mentioned that, I have a couple of friends, and they don't watch WWE at all. And the exact line was, why would anybody watch this? Like, why would any young person watch WWE? Because there's like nothing cool about WWE.
That's for sure.
It's this really weird sports entertainment deal.
It's very prepackaged.
It's very prepackaged. It's very clinical. Everybody's got to read their lines. Everybody's got to do the same match.
Yeah.
It's like just so not cool. And boy, were Wale and the Street Profits cool.
That's undeniably true.
They were the coolest thing I saw on WWE television. I can't even tell you how long. It was unbelievable. People were like, I can't believe the Street Profits are closing the show. I was like, if this would have been anywhere else on the show, like the rest of the show's dead. It was such a great entrance. And then they did like 10 minutes of chin locks on Montez Ford because they had to do an overrun. So that sucked.
So yes, the match begins, and for a while, I'm totally into it. I love Bobby Fish. I really love Kyle O'Reilly. They're a great team. Especially O'Reilly does the best job, maybe even better than Riddle, of working MMA techniques into a pro wrestling match and making them both believable but also practical in the wacky world of pro wrestling. So for a while, I'm really enjoying it. And then they just had the heat on him forever. For a day and a half, they had the heat on this guy. Finally, Dawkins gets the hot tag, and he runs wild, and he looked pretty good. But he gets cut off. Great spot where O'Reilly gets him in a heel hook, and then to ensure he can't tag out or get the ropes, Fish hits the ring and drags them both to the middle of the ring. And then they did a spot that I have never seen, but it was unbelievably great. Dawkins is down in the ring. Fish goes to the top rope, and he goes for a big splash or headbutt, whatever. He dives through the air. As he is diving through the air, Dawkins dives to the corner and makes the tag. Fish flops in the center of the ring, and then Ford goes up top and he hits a big giant splash. This looked beautiful. He went back up top. He did a giant over the post running dive. That was terrifying. Then he goes up to the top rope. Roderick Strong runs down, blatantly grabs him. Not a DQ.
Right in front of the referee.
Yeah.
And by the way, for the person asking me about this led directly to the finish. Roddy prevented him from doing his finish by grabbing him in front of the referee. And then Undisputed Era immediately hit the high-low and pinned Dawkins.
Yes. Took a while to get going. I thought the end, by the last few minutes was very good. And then Adam Cole... So Roddy, Fish, and O'Reilly are in the ring. They had already been down there. They're all celebrating. Adam Cole comes out on stage to celebrate with his buddies, but as he's out there, the lights go out, and Ciampa's music hits, and Cole's head just sinks. He wants nothing to do with this guy. And Ciampa comes out, he circles Cole, but the whole time, he can't take his eyes off Goldie. And he stares him down, and this shaggy, bearded troll of Ciampa having a stare down with a pretty boy in his man bun. Perfect television. So NXT started and ended on a high note. In between, mostly good.
I pretty much loved the show. I thought it was the best NXT in a long time.
That's for sure.
I mean, taking out the Full Sail stuff, it was a very good show. And I do want to say, and I don't think this was really an NXT call. I have a feeling this was Vince. Maybe it was Triple H. I don't know. But this statement that they sent out today, before the rating even came out,
that was goofy.
Congratulating AEW and saying, well, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And really, it's just great for all the fans. I know that a lot of people thought it was really cool for them to do that and everything like that, but get real. This company tried every possible thing that they could think of to crush AEW.
For months now.
Their stories, by the way, let me just tell you something. You may learn about this story on SmackDown, you might not, okay? When it happens, I'll tell you all about it. But there are things that WWE did that you don't even know about yet, okay? But you're going to know at some point. They did everything that they could think of. I'm not talking anything diabolical, but just typical WWE war stuff.
To steal audiences. And
Just stuff. But anyway, the point is an overrun to try to cheat their way into 15 minutes more in the ratings.
Yep.
No commercials in the first 30 minutes. I mean, the very fact that they're going Wednesday head-to-head, everything. They did everything they could to stomp out AEW. And they got brutalized on the first week. Now they're out there with this statement. I mean, get out of here. This is ridiculous.
If this was any other company, I might think there was some sincerity in there. But they've been focused entirely on putting the opposition out of business for 40 years now. They want to be a monopoly. That's their goal. So yes, that was some odd, pointless horseshit. That statement. We then move on to AEW Dynamite, also October 2nd of the year 2019.
This was not as good of a wrestling show. The in-ring wrestling on NXT was better. Mm-hmm. But as a show, as a major league show, this was much better than NXT.
It was a very good TV show, that's for sure.
The moment they showed that building and all of the people in there, God, the afternoon of this show, there's all these threads on our board about how there's all these tickets available for $4, and did these shows really sell out? And, are there actually going to be 13,000 people in the building, or are there going to be 7? They showed this building, and they announced 14,129. I don't think they lied about one fan. This place was packed.
And big. It was a big packed building.
Well, 14,129 is not that much bigger than a well-attended Raw. But they've got the TNA crew there. And say what you will about TNA, But TNA made the 800-seat Impact Zone look like there were like 3,000 people in it. So you had those people in charge of a building with 14,000 people in it. It looked like a good 20,000 people in this building. It was packed. The graphics were great. The pyro was great. The lighting was great. There were I don't remember one missed spot, except like during the commercials. It was great production. This looked like the major leagues.
No doubt.
Then you watch NXT and it's like
an indie show.
It's like watching ROH on HDNet.
Yeah, actually, it's true.
That's what it was.
Yeah. So that was a very cool opening video, and then the entrance set, which is the exact same set they've used. They used it at Double or Nothing. I assume they've used this for every show now. The announcers are Jim Ross, Tony Schiavone, and Excalibur.
A great team.
Listen, I love the NXT announcers, so this is not a shot at them. But I was blown away by how great this team was, not just because, obviously, Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone are great announcers. We've known that for a while. And I'm so happy for Tony to be back having fun calling a wrestling show. It's like redemption after the business wrote him off for 20 years. This is my first time, I think, listening to Excalibur. I probably heard him on PWG at some point, but first time in a long time. But these guys worked together seamlessly. This is the part that impressed me most. They never talked over each other. There was never dead air when no one knew whose turn it was to talk. They all moved in and out, and it was not like there was a play-by-play guy and then a heel and a babyface. They just all had points to make, an action to call, and opinions to share, and they just moved throughout seamlessly. They were fantastic. They ran down the card, just like a real honest-to-God sporting event would do. Adam Page versus Pac. Rio versus Nyla Rose. And the main event of the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega versus Chris Jericho and Santana and Ortiz. And the opener, Cody versus Sammy Guevara.
You know, I got to mention another thing right here. So Finn Balor was super over when he showed up at NXT, and Adam Cole is a superstar to the NXT crowd, and a lot of the guys there are. But here's another one about Full Sail versus this building. The winner of this war is going to be the promotion that convinces fans that they've got the bigger stars. Like, fans care about the in-ring action to a degree, but throughout the history of wrestling, if you want to make a lot of money as a pro wrestling promoter, you must have superstars. Mm-hmm. You must have people that the fans view as superstars. And no matter who they bring from the main roster to Full Sail, like everybody on the AEW show, they looked like bigger stars being in a 14,000 seat sold out building.
Yes.
Like, how big a star can you look when you're in a tiny little building in the dark in front of 400 people?
Don't know.
That means something to fans.
So we get a cool hype video for this one, introducing the two combatants and explaining all the training they did to get ready for this. I wish they'd done more of this on the show. I think this was the only one, really. And then they do their entrances, and I have seen Sammy Guevara before. I was at Double or Nothing, but let me tell you, watching him on TV, this is the best heel in the world, because he comes out, and the graphic reads, the best ever.
Yeah, the announcer even goes, he calls himself the best ever.
The best ever.
Like, huh.
And then he comes out in his stupid panda head costume. I could not wait for him to get his ass kicked. I was on the edge of my seat, waiting for him to be killed. Aubrey Edwards, a great ref, by the way. We don't talk about that enough. But she has, I know this is strong, this is a too high a bar to live up to, but she does something similar to Red Shoes, in that she sells the action without taking anything away from the combatants. When it wasn't a drop kick, it was when Guevara did the backwards roll and then a moonsault, and right as he's going for the cover, she stops to jump in shock and amazement and then drop down to do the count. So she enhances everything they do without ever making it all about her. So she's very good. The match was a 10-minute match, paced to go 10 minutes, that deserved to go 10 minutes. And as opposed to a lot of matches on a lot of shows, and I'm talking about NXT, I am talking about Raw and SmackDown a lot, I am talking about Ring of Honor. A lot of shows I watch, matches go really, really fast just to go really, really fast. They all feel like 10-minute matches squeezed into 3 minutes. This was a 10-minute match given 10 minutes to breathe. It was very, very good. The camera work is outstanding. I could see everything. They only used close-ups when not a lot was going on. And you see, get a close up to see Cody's reaction when Sammy kicked out of something, to see Cody's frustration or his exasperation, or what have you. I do think there was some overkill in this match. I don't think we needed Brandy getting wiped out by a tope in the first match in the history of
I didn't think so either, but it played into the finish. There was a reason they did it.
It played into a near fall.
Well, that's true.
Which would have been it would have been a great finish because she slapped him and Cody hit the disaster kick, right?
Yes.
So that would have been a perfect finish. They kept going. It probably may have gone a minute or two too long, but then I did love the finish they actually did, which was Sammy went for a shooting star. Cody got the knees up and immediately cradled him and won. Because you see, fans, when guys go to the top rope, these are high-risk moves. And if something goes wrong, you may well be done, and he may not even need to hit a finish. He'll just get his knees up, he'll cradle your ass, and he'll pin you. This was a success.
This is not a comparison to NXT and Full Sail. And no matter what I've said about people in Full Sail, how they got to get at a Full Sail, I have nothing against the fans of Full Sail. I'm happy that they get NXT all the time. This is merely for business reasons. I think they need to get out of Full Sail. I don't want people at Full Sail mad at me because I can say they need to get out of there. But this is a comparison to the main roster. AEW right now, if they do not screw this up, AEW is a promotion where the fans believe that we are giving you what you want in professional wrestling. Raw and SmackDown, for better or worse, and it's actually for worse, the fans believe that we're giving you what we want, and you gotta like it.
Yes.
And every now and then we'll give you something you want, but then the heels will go over.
I was going to say, more often than not, we will give you something specifically we know you do not want, but you are sheep and you will keep paying.
Okay, so that's a big problem, because the thing, I'm gonna tell you why. This match was the first of several matches on this show where I thought that this was a good match, but the fans made it a very good match. The same thing with Riho and Nyla Rose. As a match, I don't want to make anybody mad, but it really wasn't that good a match.
It was fine.
But the fans
Maybe even good.
made it almost like it felt like the best match on the show by the time it was over and the reaction that they gave to it. Because AEW has this goodwill now. Even if it's not perfect, even if it's not great, the fans, I feel, believe that they're trying. They're trying to give you what you want as a pro wrestling fan.
Yes.
So they're going to give them a lot of leeway. And they're going to get into matches more than probably they should get into these matches. But that's awesome.
That's the point.
And that's
the point of pro wrestling.
That's one of the big problems with the main roster is because they feel that the company doesn't care about them, that the company's going to do what they want to do and you just got to take it. You're going to get CM Punk chants when they don't like something. You're going to get all of these goofy chants. You're going to get your Pavlovian chants when a match is good, but you're also going to get the fans turning on matches and having people go, oh, these fans, I can't believe these fans. These fans are so bad. But it's not the fans.
It's the way you treat them.
It's the way you treat the fans. Mm-hmm. And AEW is treating them right, and they need to continue to treat them right because you're going to get reactions like this for matches like this. Not a bad match at all. It was a good match. But boy, did they try to will that into being like a great match.
So Tony goes to interview Cody, and of course he's probably known Cody literally all his life. And before they can even talk, they just have a big giant hug, and everyone cheers this. Then Sammy interrupts the interview. He wants to shake Cody's hand. Cody's reluctant, but he does. But then he is attacked from behind by the AEW World Champion Chris Jericho. And Jericho's stomping a mud hole in Cody, and everyone wants to see what Sammy's going to do, and Sammy just holds up his hands and walks away. It's not his battle.
Yeah, and people were like, man, Cody was such a geek for shaking his hand. And I'm like, why? Sammy Guevara is a douchey sort of guy, but he didn't do anything in this match where when he offered a handshake after losing clean, you thought, well, he may be trying to screw this guy. There was no indication of that. Mm-hmm. So Cody wasn't a geek. The guy wanted a handshake. He beat him clean.
And then Jericho beat him through the entire commercial break, which we could kind of sort of see. I didn't pay that much attention to it, but I gave credit to Jericho for doing his best to be entertaining when he just all he had was essentially a limp body to work with and couldn't do any audio. So he left the ring, he got a camera, came back to the shots.
Took photos with the camera, yeah.
Stuff. And then finally they come back and there's audio and he says, I'm Chris Jericho, and he leaves.
I am the champion.
Yes.
Correct.
I was not sure what to make of all
In
this.
his bubbly t-shirt.
In the bubbly t-shirt, yes. Brandon Cutler versus Maxwell Jacob Friedman. So I'm sure I've mentioned it in the show. MJF is going to be huge. I'm a big, big believer in MJF. He's tremendous. So the other great thing about this announce team. So AEW, as they will tell you, they market to a lot of...
This is Paisley's tribute to Chris Jericho.
Good bubbler. This is some good bubbler.
This is some good bubbly.
This is some good bubbler.
She's working on it.
Yeah, she's trying.
Good bubble. So a lot of AEW's marketing is directly to, let's be honest, geeks. And I say that with love. But there's a high geek contingent in the AEW fan base.
Not even so much geeks, just like younger people.
Well, my point being, when Brandon Cutler's gimmick is that he plays role-playing games. It's not something they mention in passing as part of...
That's his gimmick.
He's got dice, a gamer's dice set on his legs. There's
Yes.
a D20 and a D12 and a D10. And I am a geek, so I know what those are and how to use them.
God, if only he'd been on the indie scene when I was still on my run.
The chops you'd have unloaded.
Oh
in this
my
guy.
God, the program we could have had.
So when the announcers are talking about how he likes to play games and stuff, and Excalibur mentions something about his gaming muscles, and they didn't know what that meant, Tony and Jim Ross did, because Tony and Jim Ross have not played Dungeons and Dragons. But when Excalibur explains, well, you got to roll those dice all day. There's a pause, and he says, "Unless you use a dice tower." I laughed. I also laughed.
This was almost as good as on Raw when Dio Madden is attempting to explain
Also
to
a nerd.
Jerry Lawler
Yes.
what a LARPer is.
also. Okay, we have to tune in for that now.
Oh man, that was something else.
Yes.
Lawler is baffled.
I laughed. Check this out. So, I also laughed when Tony referred to MJF as this little prick.
Yeah.
Tony not
His
giving...
exact comment was, "We're supposed to be unbiased, but I want to see Cutler shut this little prick's mouth." He's very calm about it.
He is Tony Schiavone.
And I was like, wow.
You know what he was, Brian?
Well-
He was believable.
Yeah.
I believe Tony Schiavone wanted to see Brandon Cutler shut this little prick's mouth.
Yeah.
So, they had a short match. It was fine. Cutler...
Probably said that about me at some point.
I want to see... Yeah, an hour ago.
No.
Yes. So
We're on good terms now.
We're doing fine.
I apologize to him after watching these Nitros.
So Cutler goes up top. I guess he was selling his knee, but he just fell off.
I think it was a botch.
Okay.
They said he was selling his knee, but I mean, they went right to the finish.
Yes, which does not affect the knee.
If it was a planned spot, like MJF would have just kicked him in the leg and then hit his finish,
Yeah.
but he didn't. So I think he just fell off.
Yeah. Regardless, MJF leveled him with an elbow, hooked the Fujibar armbar, which he calls the salt of the earth, which is beautiful, and he won. I love MJF, and I think this helped him,
great.
but this felt like any random 2019 match. Chris Van Vliet interviewed Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes in the crowd. I was hoping they'd be in character and Kevin would be Silent Bob, but no. So Jericho's in their new movie. They plugged him, of course, and they're talking about all the great action. Smith called him Cody Rhodes at one point. Oops. And then...
Well, according to Cody, he can be Cody Rhodes. It's not a trademark issue. He just prefers to go by his first name.
Well, that's bizarre.
That's what he says.
Okay, it's working. Based on this show, I'm not going to argue with the results. So then Kevin Smith, he looks off camera and asks, "Who are these fools?" And it's Jack Evans and Angelico. And I say this with love. They can be fools. They say Morris Day and the Time sucks, which is an inside joke because, again, it's geek culture. It's part of what the show is. And a fight is about to break out between Jack Evans and Angelico and Jay and Silent Bob when Private Party arrive, and then it just kind of ends. I don't know what happened.
I think they left and got kicked out or something.
Right. So then we get the tag team tournament brackets, and Jack and Angelico aren't even in it. And then they're not on the rest of the show.
Well, yeah. I'm sure they'll face Private Party probably next week.
I guess.
By the way, in the tag title brackets, so they did what was the match? Dark Order. Who was the Dark Order?
So they beat somebody
match
for the
a
first round bye?
Yeah.
I forget who.
And I was like, well, how's it a first round bye? It's just basically a first round match.
But the loser is still
As
in
it
the tournament.
turns out, yes, the loser is still in the tournament. So it was, in fact, to get a bye.
Yes.
The losers have to start over again.
Yes. We had a bit with SCU touring the White House, or at least standing outside the White House, I should say, so that a Scorpio Sky could do a President Obama imitation and then do his line about how this is the worst town they've ever been in. And then they're interviewed in the arena on the ramp, where even though they are a three-man unit, Scorpio Sky yields his spot to the more experienced men. And he said this, it occurs to me, we're going to be watching Chris Daniels on Nitro in a few months.
Yeah.
He really is experienced.
He very much is.
And his career may have peaked on this show tonight.
Yes.
20-some years in. Lucha Brothers come out, they talk some smack, they get in a fight, and that's it. The Bucks and Kenny are preparing for their match backstage, and then Jericho, Ortiz, and Santana are also preparing for their match backstage. Adam Page versus Pac.
So I have a scoop for everybody here. So this match was good. Was not a great match. And I think Dave last night was talking about how Pac, he said, seemed slow.
Is it Pac or Pac?
It's Pac.
Okay.
It's supposed to be Pac.
Okay.
But it's going to be impossible for me to not call him Pac. But anyway, point of this is, for those of you wondering and suspecting, yes, the ropes were loose. And Pac seemed to be having some problems with the ropes. I think some of the Bucks had some problems with the ropes later as well. But I think that that's probably why this wasn't as dynamic as some Pac matches.
Yeah.
That's a very sad baby.
So it's tough times in Babyland.
Yeah.
So
she's hungry.
the other problem was this was an action-packed brawl, which is good, but it was just two dudes doing moves. They were about the same size. They looked the same. Their offense all looked the same. There was no reason to cheer or boo either guy. And then there were...
Well, the reason we're supposed to cheer Hangman is because he's Hangman, and he was just in a world title match. But unfortunately, as I've been saying forever, there's not enough Hangman stuff for the people that aren't watching everything. Like, if you're only watching the pay-per-views and you're only watching the television show and you don't watch Being the Elite every week, Hangman is just a dude who rode a horse to the ring at the last pay-per-view.
Yeah.
They need to do so much more with this guy. I think he's maybe cut one promo and all of this other stuff, whether it's a pay-per-view or the BR Live shows or this show. I think maybe he's cut one promo. They've really done nothing to make... Like, I'm not talking about the hardcores. Forget the hardcores. Like, you got to forget the hardcores.
The hardcores are done.
You got to talk about your average person and your middle-of-the-road person who's watched all of the big shows, but they never watched Being the Elite. You've got to do something about Hangman. He's just a guy. This match was Hangman versus Pac, and it was not bad at all. They did some good stuff, but, like, it just didn't click.
They did everything at this exact same pace. It had no peaks, no valleys. And as I wrote that down, Jim Ross even noted, and this is a quote, "The pace of this match is troubling." Troubling, he said. So it was a little boring match. And then Pac just hit a low blow and the Red Arrow and the Rings of Saturn for the win. So on the list of ways to get Adam Page over, having him lose in the title match and then lose his next match is not what I would do.
Well, Vinny, you're going to have to change your way of thinking.
All right.
Because this is not WWE, and this is a company where 98% of the time, it's like New Japan. Somebody's going to win.
Yes.
And obviously, right now, it is not about getting over Hangman. Hangman had his world title match. He lost. And now they're getting over Pac. Pac has beaten Omega.
Okay, well, I was going to say.
He's beaten Omega, and he has now beaten Hangman.
He's 2-0.
He's 2-0, and they're elevating him.
He's beaten the two guys Jericho's beaten.
Yes.
So it seems that we're getting to a Pac-Jericho match.
Yes. So Hangman just happened to be somebody who was in a big match on the debut episode, and it's not his time right now. So he lost. Now, if they want to make it his time down the road, they need to start doing something with the Hangman.
Nyla Rose versus Rio with Britt Baker on commentary. as that couple is competing against each other now. So Nyla is a big, strong woman, and Rio is a small woman, and they're having this fight, and it's mostly just Nyla being slow, methodical, I should say, methodical, and working her over. They do a lot of spots outside. Jim Ross.
May I talk about my favorite spot early?
That's what we're here for.
So, Nyla hits a splash, and Riho does the Japanese bridge up out of it that all the women do.
Yes.
And she gets to her feet, and so Nyla is still on her belly. And Riho hits the ropes, and she does a giant leaping double foot stomp onto the back of Nyla Rose.
Yeah.
Nyla Rose then proceeds to do a push up,
Yes.
which tosses Riho high into the air.
That's what happened.
I loved that spot.
That's what happened. So yes, they did a good David and Goliath story to this. My favorite part was actually when they start brawling outside and start throwing around chairs.
That was my least favorite part.
Well, not that part itself, but when Jim Ross went into grumpy old man mode and started ranting about how there's no rules here, is anything going to be enforced?
Well, I mean, he's right, but he's wrong, because the referee was enforcing the rules. The referee was telling Nyla Rose, you can't use that chair or you will be disqualified. She then attempted to use the chair, and the referee grabbed it out of her hands. Then she starts getting more chairs. Now listen, just say it's a no DQ match. Because as a fan who has been told that this will be a sports presentation where wins and losses matter, this woman coming out here in a decision match for the women's title.
Inaugural women's title, yes.
She's out here doing something that could very easily get her disqualified. That made no sense.
Yeah. So she goes for a cannonball on the pile of chairs. She misses. Rio hits a foot stomp onto the pile of chairs. She hits. They get in the ring and do a bunch of near falls. The crowd's into all of them. And Rio hits an avalanche Northern Light suplex for 2. And that doesn't work. So she hits a Meteora and she wins.
Actually, it was weird because she goes for the first knee and Nyla moved. And so then she just did it again and hit her in the back of the head, and then did it again and hit her in the front and pinned her. It was weird, but I liked it. It was like, the idea was, we're trying to make this kind of real. She
Yes.
went for a knee and the girl moved, so she hit her with the second one and then another one and pinned her.
Yes.
Very Japanese style finish. And the fans, oh my God, when Riho got the pin,
It was amazing.
there's 14,000 people on their feet jumping up and down.
Because this was a good TV match.
It was fine.
I've seen 1,000 matches like
It
this in my
was
life.
not the match of the year.
No.
But if
it was
you,
the match of the show.
if you only watched the finish, like if you didn't see any of the match, if you tuned in right when Riho hit that knee and then got the pin, actually before that, there was a spot earlier where Nyla went for something and Riho cradled her, and the ref practically counted 3. And Nyla kicked out, and the fans were furious. They were so furious and angry at this referee for not saying it was a 3. If you would have tuned in right there and watched the next 2 minutes, you would have presumed, well, this was the female match of the year.
Yeah.
Had to be. Look at these people. It wasn't even close.
No.
But dude, they loved this match.
So Michael Nakazawa goes to interview Riho. Now this is, I assume, this is not like a big Japanese star. This is a guy AEW found to do comedy, right?
Well, I mean, he's not a Nakamura or anything like that. But if you follow Japanese wrestling, you know who he is.
Okay. Well, he's here to do comedy, clearly, because
He's definitely a comedy guy.
that part I figured out. So he is talking to Riho in English, which was odd in itself. And then he announces, I will now interview her in Japanese. And then before he can, Nyla attacks. She goes to powerbomb him. And she doesn't quite get him up the first time, and he's going down, and she doesn't drop him. She doesn't lose control over him, but she can't get him back up, and she can't stop him from going down, and so she sets him down as gently as possible right on top of his head. I laughed and laughed and laughed, and then she is very strong, and she hooked him up to the sky and powerbombed him.
Yeah.
And then she goes to give Riho the DVD and the apron when Kenny Omega saves. Huge reaction for Kenny. And then the main event.
By the way, it was made clear in the Tony Khan media scrum that they are not going to be doing Nyla Rose versus Kenny Omega.
Okay.
So I'm not really sure why they did this, but I'm glad they did because, with the exception of Cody, every time something bad happened to somebody on this show, somebody came out to help.
They all have friends.
Great.
Friends are wonderful.
I don't
Friends
care
are so
if
nice.
this never leads to anything. It just made me so happy to see a promotion where something bad happens to a babyface and another babyface comes out to make the save. Rey Mysterio is getting slaughtered by Brock Lesnar. Brock is slaughtering his son on Raw. Nobody comes out to make the save.
Well, in their defense, it's Brock Lesnar. I let those guys die too.
And then 5 minutes later, we start going to every babyface on the show having to start their interview going, I just want to say how disgusted I was by what Brock Lesnar did to. I'm like, well, where were you then?
They were cowards, Brian.
So with one exception on this show, I mean, if this were a WWE show, everyone knows what happened. Nyla Rose would have won, then she would have beat up Riho, and nobody would have made the save. Instead, Riho won, Nyla went to beat her up, and a friend saved her. Hip hip hooray!
Woo! So we get Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks versus Chris Jericho and Santana and Ortiz. And like a minute in, the Young Bucks hit dives, and Omega does his Terminator pose, and he's going to do a dive when Jon Moxley appears behind him.
Same deal. How is this not a disqualification?
Well, that is the problem. But first, talk about what I loved about this, which was the fans react to Moxley, and Omega reacts to the fans.
Because he's not an idiot.
He is not an idiot. He says, these fans are cheering way too loud for something I haven't done yet. And he's looking around. He knows something is up. And he turns around and Moxley kills him. Now, a great question you just asked, Brian. Why is this not a DQ? They fight and fight and fight. And they go, not backstage. They go through the bleachers to the VIP area, we were told. Where Omega is DDT'd through a glass table. I guess he's dead.
Dude. Forget the glass. It's obviously not real glass.
Of course not, but still.
But dude, he got brain busted on his head on the ground. I watched this over and over again, and I was like, how are you not dead? Like, how are you not dead? You went straight up in the air, and you came down on your head, but your legs went the other way, and your neck, like your chin touched your navel. How are you not dead?
I don't know.
I guess he's not dead, but that was brutal. But yes.
Now,
the problem is they haven't, if this were my company, this would not have been on the first show. You would have done a match and something would have happened and you would have announced it's no DQ next week. Then fine, Moxley can come in and go after Kenny Omega and now it's a 2-on-3 match. Great. But in a normal 6-man with no stips, some dude coming in out of the crowd and killing Kenny Omega in front of the referee.
in front of the referee.
Destroying
at the very
him
beginning.
and leaving this a handicap match. I was like, this will not fly.
This is very stupid. This is very stupid. So when I think they went to commercial at least, when they came back, the match is just going on. Giant thumbs down. That was stupid. All they had to do, by the way, was have the ref throw the match out and then have the Bucks say, no, wait. Our friend got attacked, but we are still willing to fight.
Sure.
And just restart it.
Great.
That's all you got to do. That would have made sense. But no, the match is going on 3-on-2. It's dumb. Once I got over that, it was a good little handicap match.
Nick Jackson makes this incredible
Nick's comeback. It's funny because he's making his comeback like running corner to corner and doing the bulldog clothesline spot. And I'm thinking he's stolen this whole comeback from Matt Hardy. And then he gets up and he steals Jeff Hardy's comeback. He is both Hardys at the same time.
Great.
It was amazing.
And you know what? Not one announcer had to tell me repeatedly that he was a real-life superhero.
No.
Because I can see it with my own 2 eyes. When you brand it, when you hammer it into my head, it makes me angry.
Yes. Now, that said, there were still 3 of them, and only 2 good guys. And eventually he was overwhelmed, and the 2 guys just grabbed him and threw him into Jericho, and Jericho hit the Judas effect and pinned him. Fine. As a handicap match, this was good. But the fact it was not pushed as such irritated me. So Cody runs out to save the Bucks. Sammy Guevara runs out and attacks Cody's balls. Dustin Rhodes makes the save, still in phenomenal shape. But then out comes the debuting Jake Hager, an Oklahoma boy, which causes Jim Ross to get a holy shit on TV. Hager destroys everybody. Dr. bombs Dustin through the bell table, like the little card table they have, which looks very uncomfortable. Another Judas effect on Cody. And this felt like somebody missed a cue and they started going too early because it went too long. And that was it, though. And we were left with a very strange faction of Chris Jericho, the former LAX, Jack Swagger, and Sammy Guevara. The We the People guy is teaming with 3 Latinos and a Canadian. Okay. So there you go.
Listen, some people are very upset about Jack Swagger, pointing out that AEW doesn't need to be bringing in a bunch of WWE, quite frankly, geeks.
I was going to say washouts, but
he was portrayed as a geek forever. But here's the thing, okay? If WWE uses you poorly, it's not fair that that's the end of your career.
I agree.
That's not fair,
right.
Okay? If you think that Jake Hager has a big upside, bring him in and push him. Maybe he'll get over, and if he doesn't, you move him down the card. But right now it appears that he is the 6'5" giant MMA heavy for Chris Jericho. This sounds fine with me. I'd like to see it.
This
On a similar note, like, I could be wrong, and the rest of you geeks can correct me if I'm wrong, okay? But since the Joker movie's coming out tomorrow, I seem to recall that when Heath Ledger was announced as the Joker, like, there were a lot of people that were like, Heath Ledger they were furious, right?
Yes.
Well, at least till tomorrow, at least, it's the greatest Joker ever.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's unbelievable. So he got a chance and he ran with it. And Jake Hager, like, yeah, I don't think they should bring in every guy that WWE has fired and not rehired at a period where they're rehiring everybody. But if you have a guy and you think he's got an upside, bring him in and go for it.
And as much as it is still a weird faction, but when you look at the pieces, you have a top guy and a mouthpiece in Jericho, you have a tag team, you have a cruiserweight, and you got the muscle. So everyone
Great.
has a role here. Yeah, it fits. As weird as this combo is, it does fit and make sense.
Not to mention, it's AEW and it's their audience. And nobody rejected this. They popped huge when he came in. They chanted, "We the People." They're gonna give it a chance. So give it a chance.
Yes. So before we go, Brian, I think we should keep score and just say, forget business, forget drawing money, forget all that stuff. Which show did you enjoy more?
That's tough.
I will allow you to vote for a tie if you like them both.
I'm gonna give him a tie this
You
week.
give it a tie.
Because as a show, as a big-time professional wrestling show, the AEW show is better.
Mm-hmm.
But as a wrestling fan, that Matt Riddle versus Adam
Yes.
Cole match, I was so happy when it was over.
Oh, yeah.
It made me so happy. Now, granted, the rest of the show wasn't as good as that, but like that was so good that I am giving them a tie this week.
I agree with everything you said, but I am going to vote for NXT simply because that match was so awesome. There was nothing on AEW.
It overrode everything on the other show?
Basically, yes.
Okay.
By itself. So there you go. I'm going to keep score. And
Well, keep score. Write mine down.
I've written yours down.
I've started with a tie.
Start with a tie.
Because
That's
you
fair.
know what? At the end of the day, the other thing is they deserved a tie this week.
Okay.
They both went out there. They knew it was a very big night. Granted, WWE should lose a few points for being so underhanded about everything, but you can't, like, that's Vince. You can't blame all of the NXT wrestlers. I'm not mad at anybody at Full Sail. Like, honest to God, when they do leave Full Sail, which I'm gonna feel sad for the people at Full Sail that they lost their NXT show, all because they had a small building. But both sides, they presented very good shows. They tried very hard. It was 1,000 times better than 99% of the Monday night battles during the Monday Night Wars.
Yes.
So, hey, you
That's
both
an
win.
outstanding point.
Yep.
As we have revisited this. Yes.
You both win. So there you go.
All right.
All right, everybody, we're going to be back on Sunday. Granny will join us on Sunday after Hell in a Cell. We're going to review that show, and then Granny will come on and review the show, and we'll do some questions or something like that. She's moving to Sunday, so be prepared for that. Tomorrow, I will be back Friday night with Dave talking this SmackDown. I will not be doing every Friday, but the first few weeks I'll be doing Friday. And that's going to be, I think, a permanent show with some other co-host. So you can look forward to that. And that's it. We'll talk to you again after a while.
Adios.